The new arrivals are being registered, and what this means is that they are now officially homeless. The people have just arrived, at least 6 or 7 buses, and the stories that we're hearing are all of people saying they've had no food. Many don't know where their family members are. It is an unimaginable scale of human tragedy what is unfolding. There's just been incoming from Syria into Turkey. We were actually preparing for a live when we heard a whiz over our heads, and then we saw the smoke landing around 500 meters from our position. Well, ISIL's been pushed out of most of the territory that it once held, and so the battlefield is becoming perhaps even more complicated. So it was rigged towards the entire interstice section of the house, and then you were telling me that it linked into here, and what did you find? I mean, it is quite extraordinary to see the expertise that is used by ISIL in rigging these kinds of places. There's a lot of tear gas being thrown into the crowd, and then the youth here picking it up and throwing it back towards the fence. We're just a few kilometers behind the front line, and there's a heavy presence of ambulances here. There's just been a big eruption of the volcano, and we were talking to people just in a village further up the road, so we're now driving to get away from it. It's incredibly scary when you see this cloud come towards you. Now, this area is what's known as the Muslim quarter of the old city, and we're on the roof of Nora's house. They're telling us that there's an Israeli tank, and they're saying that it is advancing, and everyone has kind of run back from here. And they've also brought in water cannons. The Supreme Court still going on, hours and hours now, getting into the detail of what exactly went wrong in August's annulled elections. The army has now cordoned off the area. There's also Hezbollah security on the ground. It's an extremely tense situation. People are very nervous. Stefanie Dekker, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
As we enter Syria, it is the Free Syrian Army flag that flies high here. We're on a media trip into Azaz, organised by the Turkish authorities. They take us close to where there's been fighting with the YPG, the Kurdish armed group Turkey calls a terrorist organisation. Turkish forces are trying to push it out of the region of Afrin. The front line is just a few kilometres west of here. Both Turkish troops and the Free Syrian Army are taking part. We ask one of the FSA fighters why he is involved in Turkey's operation. For some, it seems it's personal.
We're fighting the YPG because they betrayed us, and especially because they took over my city, Tal Rifat. I've been displaced along with many of my neighbours for 2 years, living in the camps. There are such bad conditions, especially now in the winter.
What our Turkish escorts are telling us is that the front line with the YPG, with the Kurdish fighters, is just further along that mountain. There's also Bursaya mountain, which is over to this side where there's been active fighting. But what is clear here on the outskirts of Azaz city is how much of a presence Turkey has. They are, of course, supporting the Free Syrian Army fighters, the Syrian rebels that are really taking a large part in this operation that Turkey has undertaken against Afrin.
While we were here, 2 bullets whizzed overhead. And we're told YPG snipers are to blame for this. They shot at us and our tyre blew up, he says. We move on and into the city of Azaz. ISIL was pushed out of here in 2014, but life remains difficult. Nazar has to provide for 13 members of her family, she tells us. She is all alone. War has now become the norm, she says.
People like us are used to the shelling and the explosions. The young children are still scared, but we've been facing this for a few years now. We're not afraid anymore.
There is hardly any electricity here. Generators are the only way to get light or heat. And the winter rain has left the streets thick with mud. The black paint on this wall reads, "For sale." It seems some still dream of moving on from here. The landscape in this part of Syria is dotted with tents. Millions of Syrians remain homeless in their own country.
We have been here for 3 years and the tent has never been fixed. Because of the rain, the tent leaks and there are 7 people in one tent. Our situation is terrible.
This is a country ripped apart by almost 7 years of war. Millions of Syrians have had to leave their lives behind. And as the years go by, the war simply seems to change its form. the guns seemingly impossible to silence. Stefanie Dekker, Al Jazeera, Azaz, Syria. They are emerging from almost 3 years of ISIL rule, and now a terrifying war. It's been a long and painful journey to get here.
We haven't slept in 3 days. We've been walking for about 30 or 35 kilometers. Truly it feels like someone is taking revenge on us.
We are very tired and have suffered a lot these years, but thank God it's over.
People are fleeing Mosul in their thousands, and there are mixed emotions here.
Will you be able to go back to Mosul?
Well, Mosul is very damaged. It's very damaged. The life and the self is very damaged.
What goes through their minds as they wait? They're let off the buses one by one and given a quick security check.
The new arrivals are being registered, and what this means is that they are now officially homeless. The people have just arrived, at least 6 or 7 buses, and the stories that we're hearing are all of people saying they've had no food. Many don't know where their family members are. It is an unimaginable scale of human tragedy what is unfolding here.
Women and children are welcomed inside this tent. Small comforts for a colossal ordeal. We ask what life was like the last few years. Torturous, she tells us. Slowly, a picture emerges of living under ISIL rule.
They killed children and adults for no reason. They grabbed children like my son and asked them, "Why aren't you going to the mosque? If he wants to pray, he can pray at home. We are all Muslims. We are all slaves of God. Why does he have to go to the mosque?" That's ISIL.
What sin have these children committed to lose 3 years of their lives? My children were top of their class. Now they have lost 3 years. A whole generation has been destroyed. An entire generation.
It's easy to shed the superficial constrictions imposed by ISIL. Black face covering niqabs, which women were forced to wear, give way to colour.
My wife lost. My people lost. My house is damaged.
It's the emotional scars, which will be much harder to fix. Stefanie Dekker, Al Jazeera, Chamakor camp, east of Mosul. It's barely 7 o'clock in the morning, but these two are already late. Coach Shintayo Eshetu is busy warming up his students, something he has done here in Bakoji for the past 30 years. This rural village, almost 3,000 meters above sea level in the Ethiopian highlands, is at first glance just like any other. But world-class athletes are born and bred here.
The secret is their determination and their hard work, and also the weather. For instance, if you bring an athlete from somewhere else, it will be difficult for them to breathe, at least for the first few weeks. Once he gets used to the altitude, he will be fine. Then once you get back to the ground level, it will be much easier.
There's been a lot of debate and research as to why this small rural village has produced so many world-class long-distance runners. Now, one thing is certain, the dedication and determination of these young men and women to make it. And it's very possible that you'll be seeing one or more of them at future world sporting events.
According to Coach Shintayu, 17-year-old Mercer Tafa is one to watch. We ask her about her dreams.
My dream, like other successful athletes from my village, like Toronesh and Genzebe Debaba and others, I want to run in the Olympics and I want to break the records. And I can see that in my dreams.
For many, running offers the only way out of this village. Life can be difficult, children tend to cattle and help take care of the family from an early age. There is incredible pride in those who went from here to international sporting fame. And that can be seen at the local government office, proudly displayed on the wall posters of local heroes, Olympic medalists and world record holders. Coach Shintayu shows us his training logbook at home. Entries for Tirandesh Dibaba from when she was 13 years old. She is now the 5,000-meter world record holder and remains the youngest ever female world champion, winning gold at just 18. It's these role models that are inspiring this new generation. All are determined, but not all will make it. The coach says it's essentially down to hard work, and that's something many of these teenagers are already used to. Further inspired by the fact that dreaming big in this small village of Olympic gold and world records really can come true. Stefanie Dekker, Al Jazeera Bakoji in central Ethiopia.